at
Oh,
7:31 p.m.
Thank
You ready?
Yes. Meeting is called to order at 7:31. First item is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Privilege of the floor. Nobody? Okay, here we go. This is why we're here, building options. So, let's see. Bernie, Matt, myself, Ellen, David, and Michelle, and Eleanor all met with Ray Quattrini and Paul Mays to go over to the building. What was the date?
15th.
Was it?
November 15th.
Okay,
Yeah.
on Monday, November 15th.
I was there too.
And Jim? Okay, sorry, yes, and Jim. So we all met with Paul Mays here, and then we went over to the Ray Quattrini building. He walked through it, he had a lot of questions for Ray. I guess Ray was pretty upfront with him. And Paul was on it about the structural and what this is gonna be and the safety and the backups and, you know, bathrooms and sewers, and there'd have to be sprinklers. I mean, he went the whole 9 yards with, Ray. Hi Keith, we just started, so. So he really touched base with him on a lot of that kind of thing to see. It wasn't previously built as a library, it was built as a restaurant type thing, so, you know, it's a shell essentially. He's thinking that the second floor is, stack sufficient, but of course we need an engineering review and nobody's gonna go on board. We want it written and we want a professional to look at it, and that goes without saying. As far as I printed out your questions, the third floor, he said that we'd have to get a village variance and that the second floor would have to be closed during that time. So to add the third floor. Also, number 4, what modifications would be needed to the Q building to make it into a library because it is a shell. Paul basically said it would be based on programs and needs. So he doesn't know that until the department heads tell him what they need in a library. So I'm glad Eleanor and Michelle came because they can tell us what they need space-wise and that sort of thing. He had a few concerns about the leasing, and he was upfront about that, Paul. He didn't like the security so much about it, that it's a public entryway up top, you know, so you have library and you have them, and both people are going in and you know, and out at the same time. I think he kind of said it was kind of a waste of space that they were there taking away from the library. Did he think that the building met our needs? He couldn't really say until he knows what we need in a library. So that's impossible for him to really state. He said it has positives and it has negatives. The positives, it was aesthetically pleasing to him, and he said it looked like it was built engineeringly, what is the word, engineerically, whatever, sound and aesthetically pleasing. But until we know, he can't really say. Then we came back and we met with him for about 3 hours, I guess total, because I got home, we met at 10, and I got home about 1. So we came back to the library and we talked for quite some time about what he thought, about what we should be doing, what our steps are. I also asked him if he could do a comparison on that building to the Salesian property, because I feel I need to do due diligence to this community to make sure that all options have been met and looked at. Viable or not viable, I just can't forget about the property. There's too many people that are interested in it. He also said some of our concerns that I think we felt, some people, that the ice cream social, the big jazz festival, would have to be in the parking lot at the Q building. There's no green. So those are things to take in consideration. Then you have to close the back off where Kennett's is and all that, so people aren't driving in or coming in. So those are things to consider. I asked him if he would mind giving us a comparison about if we took this 12,000 square feet and we put 12,000 square feet on Salesian, what would the cost be? He said he would do it, no problem. Everything is based on a proposal. So he's working on a proposal right now for us to, I guess, do an engineering review at that building. We're gonna have to get a third-party appraisal, and that's first and foremost. I mean, that has to be done. And he's also going to do the Salesian. So Bernie had never really been over there, so after we met at the library for about an hour, Bernie, myself, Paul, and his assistant went over to the property, so that Paul Mays could see it, and Jim.
And Jim.
I'm sorry, and Jim.
How is it?
And
right.
Jim. To look at the property and to talk about a phase, you know, if we do 12,000 square feet, phase 1, phase 2, and he said, obviously, you have a plethora of choices over here, I mean, there's a lot. He was concerned that he thought there was a water issue on that property that had been brought up in one of the engineering reviews, and I said, I remember something about that, but our ex-architect was gonna put a basement in for storage and electrical only, but it was gonna have a basement, so that led me to believe that a water issue wasn't that big of a deal, cause you can't have electrical and things in a sub-basement if there's a water issue. So that's where I went, leaving off with that 2 or 3 years ago, that there wasn't really an issue with the water. That was his really, only concern
That's so easy.
at Salesian. So that was it. I mean, we talked a lot. Basically, when we came back to the library, Paul told us what our next steps should be, and we need to meet with the lawyer because that building was not built for a library specifically. We can't just go in there and start doing things without the engineering review, without an appraisal. But one of the big things was, where do we stand with Ray? I know a lot of people are concerned that now Ray's having his leasees want to combine and move over there, which is a concern. Oh, is this, you didn't, I guess, okay. I call it the Greek Orthodox buildings across the street that look like Orthodox, you know, like Greek structures, I guess
The
where
bank,
Stifel
the Chase
Nicholas
Bank?
is.
Chase
and all
Bank,
that.
Oh,
the
Chase
two
Bank
buildings
is-
there.
So
Okay.
his 2 of those
Yeah.
leasees wanna move into the Q building,
Okay.
so they wanna combine with the financial guy that's already in there.
Okay.
So that's that, but then in the back of my mind, what is he really gaining, cause now that building's empty. So some people are concerned about the rushing of making an offer to Ray, which we cannot do without an appraisal, and we cannot do without, nothing verbal, obviously. He's a businessman and there's no verbal, it's not Mayberry like we talked about last month. So we need to get, right of refusal was one of the options, and there was a second option, I forget what that was called.
Right of refusal, I don't remember.
Right of refusal, and there was another thing that we need our lawyer,
Not a purchase option,
a buyout option, an opt-out
Oh,
option, I think.
Well, where do these options come from? Who
Paul Mays,
brought these up?
said, Paul
either an
Mays,
option to buy,
the option
or a right of
contractual or
first
right of
refusal.
refusal,
Well,
I have it here.
is there anything that Ray had told anybody he would, if this was done, he would hold out?
that's what they are. If you have an option to buy, what happens is you pay maybe $5,000 or whatever, $10,000, you negotiate the amount. And then the seller holds off selling to anybody else during the option period. So maybe we have an option to buy for 1 year. And he takes the $10,000, it's his, no matter what we do,
We
whether
don't
we,
get that money back.
that money's gone.
Oh,
Now, what that does, it allows us to proceed and spend money on engineering and lawyers and other things, and referendum ultimately, knowing that if the referendum passes, then the building is there. The option would include a purchase price. That's part of the option.
I understand what they are. I just was wondering if there was any dialogue with Ray to confirm that
Our
we're
lawyer.
not too late. This is a possibility as per him. I mean, we're saying it's a possibility, but we've not talked to him to see if, well, he's going for this.
I
you know.
I don't think it's too late with Ray. He knows how serious we are, especially now that we brought the architect in.
He does know how
He knows
serious
that we're
we
very,
are.
very interested in
And
the property.
After we spoke with the architect, I talked to our attorney, Robert Fink, who was midweek last week, who assured me he would at least reach out to Ray's lawyers to let them know of our interest, so that it would be, still waiting to hear from him. I was supposed to hear from him on Friday, but I guess he got caught up. He was at court for the latter part of the week, and today, called again today. His secretary said he would try to get it to me tonight before the meeting. Alas, he didn't, so I'll try him again tomorrow. But he has told me that he's not only going to talk to Ray's lawyers, but he'll also draw up for us sort of bulleted list of what we need to do in terms of legalities, what we need to do. Because as I began to speak to him about where we were and what we had done so far, he kind of put me back on my heels a little bit, said that he thinks that we need to take a couple other things into consideration before proceeding. And he said he would give us a, you know, a fairly, you know, just a bulleted list of what we need to do. And
Well, Paul Mays
so hopefully-
said that before we spend any money on Paul Mays, we wanna get either a right of first refusal or a purchase option, because if you don't, you're just opening yourself up to all kinds of criticism. Here you are
Sure.
spending all this money
Right.
and the things not even available.
In fact, Robert Fink said that even prior to that, before you even talk about that, you need to get that building appraised from a third party. That's the first thing. That's before you do anything. I mean, that was his, you know, his advice.
Right,
And then that's the next step.
right, because they can't do a purchase option without an appraisal
Right.
to put a number in the.
Do we have a firm offer, Ronnie? A firm offer from him on what he wants for it?
He's never given us anything in writing.
Hasn't the number 6 million
Yeah,
floated?
No,
numbers
the
have been.
numbers-
Well,
Right.
that was off the
That's
cuff.
Around,
verbal,
but, yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's
So
like, you know,
unless-
there's about $3 million, that's a question mark. That's the renovation, and that's the getting of tables and equipment. That's a big question mark. So, the specifics have to be discussed.
Mhm. And April is, you know, right around the corner, so we don't wanna rush into anything. That could be the worst thing that we could do.
No, nobody's rushing, you know, it's, well, I
But
don't know.
I don't want-
Is something that's taken 3+ years leading up to this point rushing?
Well, no, but we put it
Yeah.
on hold for a long time, but I don't wanna
Yeah.
rush because Ray is all of a sudden saying, well, I have people interested now, and putting us in a position
yeah.
of spending
Well, Paul
$65 million,
Mays,
it's
who's done a lot
not
of
gonna
this
be
work,
worth it.
said that it's possible to have a referendum in April. It's possible for us to do all the things we need to do and have a referendum in April. But we have to, you know, take those steps. I'm glad the attorney is gonna outline what the
Right.
steps are.
It's not rushing, it seems, it's just we're doing things in a timely fashion as far as.
We are now.
And Paul said, yeah, that we should be able to get it done by April, if that's the direction we wanna go, there shouldn't be a problem getting all the rest of the world by the referendum.
Not getting on what, I'm sorry, but, the words, I believe it was Mark Cardullo who said them at the Citizens Advisory Committee. You know, and he said, when questioned about the $20 million library, he said, I felt like we were on a runaway train and we couldn't get off. I don't think we should get on a runaway train. We should take methodical steps. We should, you know, wait for the
Appraisal?
appraisal, the engineer's report, the proposal on the
Well, the
Salesian property.
The engineer's report,
We have yet to see a report from Matt and his staff about needs. You know, that was something that we talked about a while ago. You know, do all of the things, the comments from the citizens report, you know, the gentleman gave us an awful lot of things for us to do. Before we go anywhere near you know, an awful lot of, a laundry list of things, you know, of which, you know, getting that community that surrounds that building, you know, getting them on board and looking at, you know, letting them know what we're thinking.
Well, that's just an FYI. That's not something that's gonna take any time.
Well, but
These are
taking
things
into
we have to,
consideration.
we have to start on these things. We have to stay on top of these things and not just bring them up, you know, at each meeting. And we have to do this. I mean, we have to move forward because we do. Well, I think, you know how I feel. I think this is the best location for a library. I know if we had more space, we'd fill it, and that's pretty much what we're gonna do here. It's not any rocket science that we're gonna start new programs and we need certain types of spaces. We could figure this stuff out with this large shell of a building. And this is gonna be the cheapest thing for our community, so we owe it to the community not to drag our heels, but to move forward, to try to, you know, line things
But
up and, you know,
your definition
move on
of
this.
dragging our heels, is the way you view, what some of us feel are taking methodical steps that you have to in order to basically protect
I
the
do-
library community, the
True.
taxpayers.
I know, but
So
you know,
what
we've
would you
brought
have
these
us do different?
we've brought these things up before. We've brought up having an engineer look at this probably 2 or 3 meetings back, and we've not moved on it.
Well, first we need the appraisal, the lawyer said now. He goes, that's first and foremost. So what,
If we
I
were
don't- we
to
can
get an
vote.
engineer right now and spend money on it, and then Ray says, I'm not gonna hold that building for you guys, then that money's gone down the drain.
That's true too.
So Paul May
That's
said,
true
Paul
too,
May
and
said,
that's why we
"Don't
should have
spend-"
talked to Ray.
But the attorney, that's why Matt had our attorney call
His
Ray's
attorney.
attorney. He's trying to get that conversation underway right now.
I mean, we can get an offer from Ray.
Ray should
I
make
mean,
an offer.
somebody said that the building is for sale. Well, yeah, it's listed on the want ads on the web that it's for sale. So somebody can go and say, now what do you want for it? And come back with that.
The thing that I go back to is
If he
before.
says $7 million, we wanna take a walk, right? Just forget about it.
What I go back to is looking at the video, maybe the second video that was done for this board. This was, I think, in March, could have been February, in which the gentleman who's no longer a member of the board had come back after meeting with Ray and reported his findings. Reported his findings February, March. And that's what I look at, you know. This was discussed even, you know, earlier than that, I know, but, you know, it just, I don't know.
If you're in a hurry, Matt, have you heard from
I'm
the
not in a
two
hurry,
appraisers
except-
that I talked to last week about giving us a price to appraise the Q building, this building, and the land? I spoke to two different appraisal firms. They promised to call you by midweek last week.
Are they local?
Yes, one in town and one in Pine Bush.
Somewhere I have the name of one in Middletown too. That's
Well,
supposed
that
to-
should be our first business.
I mean, I just called two people, I had a recommendation on one, and I called them, told them this is what we need, call Matt, come and to Goshen Public Library and give them a price of what it's gonna cost us
And
to.
it's, first of all,
And
we
they
need to do it legally
welcome
and
to
for
Orange
peace of
County.
mind. And secondly, we can't move forward with any sort of numbers until what we know that building is worth. He's saying 3 million, maybe it's worth 1.5. I'm just
Maybe
saying.
can they say 7 million?
Well, and the problem is the worth of the building, we're determining the worth of the building as we're heading towards making it alive. So if it appraises out at, let's say, $1.5 million, okay, do we feel we wanna pay a premium for it? We're gonna have to decide that, because, you know, land prices as they are,
Right.
they're gonna be low, and commercial land is still a different ball of wax.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
and it's
when
not
we
like
would
buying a
have to
house.
negotiate with him at that
Yeah.
point. It depends how desperate Ray really is. I mean, right now, he's got all these buildings that he's paying taxes on. If we buy it for, yes, lower than what he wanted, but at least it's out of his hands now. So it's something, it's a game.
Yeah, but
It's-
it's
it is
also
with anything you
what's-
buy,
what
so.
makes it more or less worth is our complete timeline, because if we're not gonna move in, we're gonna have somebody or him do the work, and we're not gonna move in for 18 months, let's say, he's gonna be paying taxes on it still for 18 months, he's gonna be paying his same monthly
Well,
payments.
that would all have to be negotiated and
That's-
figured
that's
out.
just gonna
And
make,
Yeah.
Paul Mays
make it
also
worthwhile
said
for
there
him.
was legal things about even getting people in there to make it into a library. Do you remember him saying things like that we really need to watch our
Wick's
backs
Law.
about the Wicks law and
Mhm.
you just can't go in
Yeah.
there and
Yeah,
hire this and do that.
I brought up the question of, would it be cheaper to have the building be owned by Ray and all the work is being done by
Just
Ray,
FYI,
and then
we're
we
passing
buy it
down
at the
from Paul.
end? And, Paul May said that there are attorneys who would say you can save a lot of money doing something like that, and there are other attorneys who will say it's illegal. And what's gonna happen is the unions are gonna come in and file a lawsuit.
Mhm. That-
They're gonna say you're trying to evade the laws. The laws he referred to are Wick's law, but there are several, there's a prevailing wage law and there's a Wick's law. And he said, I don't know how it's gonna go in the lawsuit, but they'll definitely, the union's not gonna sit up in, where do they have their headquarters, up at Stewart? There's a big headquarters
Put a
up there.
giant rat outside the
Yeah.
library.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're not gonna just sit there and let us proceed with, which would be very public. Because the referendum would indicate what's happening. And he said, I don't know how it would go. It's possible it would go your way, it's possible it wouldn't.
But it's not a chance we're taking. Again, another thing that we cannot rush through. And April is 4 months away. February would have to be in the paper. And I just don't have good feeling about rushing this thing through. Yes, it could be a great opportunity, it's a great building right here now, but it's been on the market for 2007. He's gonna move 2 leases into another building, so now he's got another one empty, so what is he gaining? Nothing really. I just wanna make sure we do the right thing in the right order. I don't
So
wanna
as
be
far
able to
as-
run a rate train because of a building availability.
As far as we know, the next step is the appraisal.
Yes,
Because even, we can't get the option to purchase without an appraisal. Because the option to purchase is gonna have a dollar figure in it.
yes.
And the appraisal could cost,
How
what,
much is a
what do you
commercial
think?
appraisal? I have no
Exactly.
idea.
I called 2 people,
Yeah.
asked them to give him a
I
price.
have no idea.
At one time,
We
I
can
thought
ask
you
for
had
proposals, we can ask for.
heard someone had said it was
Oh,
thousands
and
of
it's like
dollars.
$5,000
Yeah.
of
Is it really?
property. That's what somebody told me,
I'm
that
the wrong
you could
business.
figure on spending $5,000 for each of the properties.
Now, maybe it's not as complex
No,
on a
it may-
building
I-
that's largely a shell.
That's
So-
why I'm asking these people for a price and
Right.
So you're gonna line up getting an appraisal?
Maybe
I'm
it's
Right.
right.
calling them, it's gonna
Just
call
fact
him.
finding?
No.
I'll do
I
it.
just,
Okay,
To give to Matt.
so Matt will
I would
line
just
I'll
call,
follow up on these people and.
Well, Matt can't enter into a contract with an appraiser until we approve it.
right,
okay.
but I would get 3 appraisals, ask them what they would
Yes, I
charge,
can. You get
give us
2 already
numbers.
that didn't even call back.
Obviously, they're rich and they don't need money apparently, I don't
And they
understand.
just fax you, you know, when an offer, I'd like to see something in writing from the appraisals, not a verbal thing. Can
Well,
you-
one of them said, well, what I gotta do is investigate the buildings and the land before I give you a price and what it's gonna cost to investigate them.
Right. Right. Yeah, he just can't make off the top of his head, give
Well-
you a price. He's gotta know, you know, the size of the building and what, you know.
That's
what's
cool.
there.
We go out, we tell 3 guys, we want we want you to get a price, an estimate of the appraisal by this date.
Yes, on
You
this
get
building.
it to us, or you're, you know, we'll
Before
find somebody
December
else.
3rd, so we can vote on it
So,
at our next meeting.
December 13th.
Oh, December, what's
The
December
13th.
3rd? I
I'm
have
not
something on the
here.
3rd then, obviously.
So do I.
mm.
So we're not meeting on
That's
that.
I better check my postage, now I'm nervous.
Well, no, ours is the second.
Oh, yes, I do
December
have Girl
13th.
Scouts, but I also have something else on the 3rd, it's a Friday, you're right, it's the 13th. We need before the 13th, because we need to
Okay.
start getting that appraised.
Well,
So-
you're saying we can't pursue that until we vote on.
Well,
Who's gonna do the
I
You
guess,
can pursue getting the quote
Yes.
for the cost
And
of
get
the
3,
estimate.
let's
Okay.
get 3
And
bids.
then we'll vote on
I had hoped
who
to
it
have
would
that
be.
before we
well, we
even
could, I think,
got any
the
further.
board could authorize Matt to spend up to $5,000 to get an appraisal.
Yeah, we're
Now,
allowed
as
to do
soon
that.
as we do that, the appraisal is gonna
Yep,
cost
we can do that.
$5,000.
Yeah, yeah. We can, right now, we have a quorum, if we decided to make a motion and vote on Matt getting 3 bids for an appraisal up to $5,000, and all that includes on a Q
Mm.
building, we are well within our rights to do that.
And don't you want to do that?
Yes, we do, because
Then
that's first.
I make the motion that we allow for Matt to spend up to $5,000,
Up to and including.
up to and including $5,000
On the
an
appraisal on the Q
on
on
building.
the Q building
Right.
as it's
Getting
known at
3
this
bids
point.
though, cause maybe
I
somebody will
mean,
come
we
in
need
cheaper.
we need the 3 property evaluations, but we don't need
The others right now.
this
No.
one, anything but this one
Right.
to get going with what
Right,
we
to
need
get the
to
purchase
do.
option, we need just that one building.
So
Now,
Keith motion, do I have a
The thing
second
was is,
for the motion still hanging in the air?
Require-
Frank seconds?
Requiring 3 bids?
No,
He
no.
only gets 2 bids?
Well,
Well,
no,
that's my
just
question.
up to if we
yes.
can, because when you
We'll say up to.
spend a certain amount of money, we are required to bid it out, usually
Sure.
legally. So we just like to cover our butts.
Is there a time, I'm sorry, the vote?
Yeah, so we have
Well, we
Keith
have
and
a
Frank,
discussion.
all in
Well,
favor?
we should have a discussion, she has a
Oh,
question.
okay, if we have a
No,
discussion,
that's nothing to do with the appraisal.
all in
But
favor?
the appraisal says that he needs to get 3 bids on doing an
minimum.
appraisal.
Minimum, isn't it?
And spend up to $5,000
A
for
maximum
the
$5,000.
commercial
So
realtor
definitely
to
3
do that.
bids.
I would think
we-
so.
Yeah, if we don't have, we just have,
Yeah, fewer than 3 bids, then.
yeah.
Cause then it's just
We
one and
need-
one,
Right,
and
yeah,
we
then
like to have
it's
that
rating
for,
and stuff.
that's what we do with everything,
That's good.
so, that's how we just, you know, always do it.
do we wanna consider having a buyer's real estate agent surrogate act in our behalf? Somebody's gonna have to pay him. And I assume it's not.
We at that point though,
I don't
Not
think
yet,
that works
not yet,
like,
not
like,
yet.
like residential housing.
Yeah, not yet. I don't think so. not
I think
yet.
it'll be necessary.
Your lawyer can act as a
Maybe.
buyer's agent.
I don't think we're at the point.
Yeah.
How about feeling our lawyer isn't it?
Actually, I think he's,
Be careful.
I
I already have an interesting quote outstanding already.
any more discussion on a motion on the table?
Do you, Carol has-
Did
Yes.
we vote?
I'm a bit confused on that one. Should it be the motion that Matt get 3 bids without a price on it? And then we see what we're
Well, no,
hoping that
we're
they
willing
come
to go
in
up to
under
$5,000.
Yeah,
But
we're
what's he
gonna-
gonna do with the 5,000?
In other words,
Pay
He's
a,
not,
if he,
pay somebody
he's not
to,
gonna, but he's not
appraise
going
the building.
he's authorized to select one
to
bid.
select
That's
one,
what
Yes.
right, and
At
that's
the
Have
was
best
the
price,
clarification
up
trying
to
to
including
expedite it.
Now,
$5,000.
do we have the
Thank you.
$5,000, Matt?
So
Sure
the
we do.
motion is for him to go ahead and
Has to have
enter
a-
into contract with one of these people if the
Yes.
bid
Yep.
is below 5,000.
Up to and including
Yeah.
$5,000, the best out of the 3.
Yeah.
Motion
So it's
by-
a 2-part motion.
Yes, up to the 3
Thank you.
bids, up to 5,000 including, motion by Keith, second by Frank, all in favor.
And are we looking to get this by the next meeting?
Oh,
We
yes.
should have it by December 12th.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, any oppositions, abstentions, motion carries, thank you. Everybody did it. Yeah, that's first and foremost, because we can't do anything until we know.
We're moving along.
Did
Well,
Paul Mays,
been
did
saying
Paul
about
Mays-
an appraisal for how long now, Pete?
Well, but
Did Paul Mays have a time frame when he was gonna come back with his proposal for the Salesian property?
He didn't give us a timeline, he just said he would put something together on that building and comparable for that.
Well, he's not gonna do
as well.
anything until we authorize him to and enter into contract with him.
Well,
For the
Didn't
proposal?
we, weren't
Yeah,
we
I don't know. I
supposed
was
to pay
under the
him for
impression-
this thing?
no, this
He
was
came
in
down
grass.
to take a look and to talk to us and just to outline the procedure. And the procedure is, don't hire me until you have a purchase option, because if you hire me and then you don't get the building, you're gonna be in trouble.
Mhm.
So we need the appraisal, then the lawyer can negotiate either right of first refusal or a purchase option. And then we can enter into an agreement with Paul to do some work. Now, Ray said that he would give Paul all the plans
The
that are,
as-built.
basically it's computer stuff. So they'll give him that, so, and then Paul said, well, I can give that to my engineer, so I can hire an engineer to do that. So that would take care of the engineering part of it. But Paul also talked about a charrette, which is a fancy term
A French
that,
term.
that architects throw around, and basically, he said it means a community meeting. And he said you have to have a community meeting about what goes into that building. And I pointed out we had had meetings in the past, and he said he still thought it was worthwhile to have one meeting, and he would like to know what the people in the community are looking for, given the fact that there's not a lot of space there. It's not one of these buildings where you can have everything. It's a relatively small building in comparison to the community. The community, actually, he said, based upon the number of people in our library district, the recommendation is for a 20,000 square foot building. He said, and you're entering into agreement where you might only have a 9,000.
And that's the old rules, because that aren't effective for the libraries of the futures,
Well,
but
that's the current rule, the
sorry,
current recommendation.
recommend.
Right, now, he's not saying that we should do that, he doesn't think we should, but, he said that, I thought this was an interesting concept, that there are things that, people in the library field are aware of that the community may not be aware of. And we may say, well, why do we want something we're not even asking for? He said it's sort of like with electronic gear. Nobody needed an iPad until the iPads existed, then suddenly everybody wanted one. He said there are things, he mentioned one thing, and I've heard about this, but I didn't really associate it with the library. He said you can have a room where people that have home offices in the community can book that room for, let's say, 3 hours and meet with the client in that room. So it's a tremendous service to your community. And
Video conferencing options also.
Right,
Video-
and
video-
tutoring.
yeah, video
Wow.
conferencing
Tutoring.
options. There are things like that that a library,
That
other
was
libraries
gonna be
are.
built into the Taj Mahal.
Yeah, it was.
Hmm.
But the Taj Mahal had a huge price tag on it.
Right, this is
And then-
a third.
You know, we're looking
That
to do,
price.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. He
Questions
meant-
like that, whether we need to fill those needs or whether
Right,
we should.
but he
And
said-
I don't know if it's just a tremendous thing for the community in the first place.
But I
I
loved
mean,
what
they
he
could-
said, and Bob Hupsher said the same thing. They're gonna tell the community what the library can do for them, what they're not thinking about that a library does, as opposed to what they wanna see in a library. It's about
Right.
things you're not thinking about, and it's like, wow, you know, a light bulb moment. So I liked his presentation. I didn't find him arrogant, I found him affable. I don't know about everyone else,
Seems
but
like he's easy to work with.
I just said, you have to, if you're gonna do the community, meeting, you're gonna need to be obsequious, and you're gonna need to know your stuff, and you're gonna need to tell the people things that they're not thinking about, like he said about, well, what about this, or the library can do this for you, the thing, you know, people don't think about.
Is this the tall gray-haired guy that we had talking to us once before or twice
He's not
I
before?
wouldn't
tall.
describe
He's
him
not
as tall,
tall.
gray hair.
Mm.
It's kinda,
But is he the guy that we had talked to us at least twice in the last 2 years?
no,
We never talked to us yet?
no.
Okay.
So he wants to enter into a contract with us in order to produce a
Yeah, he's a
proposal
young guy.
Not a
about
con-
the
Wow.
Q building and Salesian.
I don't know if he
Some of
mentioned anything
He's the
about
guy
a
with the white
contract, he
pants.
just said, I will draw up a proposal with you, and then it would
Okay.
be up to the board to say, okay, we'll spend X amount of dollars for you to do this and that. Beyond that, I don't know if we could need to, you know,
What would he do for us? Would he design with,
Oh, he
with
did a
us,
slew
you know,
of things.
participating? Well,
He will-
what
he
are some
will
of those things?
design the library that we ask for, not what he wants, as opposed to other people. He will do the community meeting. He said he'll go down every bullet that we need to be doing at what timeline. You need this engineer, you need that, this is how you hire him, this, that, and the other thing. He said he would be on site once a week to make sure that the construction
But
managers
it
and all
would not
these.
be the, he thought it was a conflict of interest for the architect to be, also be the one that inspects the work.
Right,
That we'd have to hire separate,
GM or construction
I forget the
manager.
term, clerk of the works.
And he
Mhm.
knows the guy.
Well, he
I'm
knows,
sure, he probably does.
I'm sure he has
No, that's the
recommendations,
guy.
but, yeah. But he would do
He
a
actually said he
lot.
didn't wanna recommend
a
anybody.
ton for
He didn't
us.
wanna go as far as
Right,
recommend
Yeah,
anybody.
as a
he
matter
said
of
I
fact,
was-
he said that, I
yeah.
don't wanna recommend people, cause it's a
I mean,
conflict of
in all
interest.
honesty, but from what I've just heard, the one comment where we go and ask this guy to come down and look at this building and see if it's suitable for a library, and then says, I can't tell you that because I
Oh,
don't know what
he
you want for a
said
He
it
library.
didn't
is.
say,
He said he said
Yeah.
it's suitable, he said it's suitable. He said, but exactly how you use the space, you have to have that community meeting. And it's only one meeting.
right,
He's
He
not
said-
saying
But-
drag it out. He's saying we'll have the one meeting, and then, you know, he's gonna meet with the staff and with the board, and then he's gonna draw a plan.
Now, there is the other option that was brought up, and that was to buy out the current tenant,
right.
so.
He
That
he really
would-
seems
He
in favor of
recommends,
that.
he strongly
But I'd say
recommended that.
before we
Yeah.
go too much further with this guy, I think we gotta take a look at that guy that gave us the presentation twice. He talked
I
for,
don't remember their names, do you?
The
When
local?
was this?
No.
When
Oh,
was,
from, oh,
the guy from Rochester, or from upstate, the tall gray-haired guy.
yeah, I know what you're talking about, I can't think of his name either.
Could check the minutes.
The guy, he
Anderson?
talked to us. I mean, the
No.
guy makes more sense than anybody that, in fact, these other jerks that were trying to,
Yeah, he came along with them. I
Yeah.
know who you're talking about.
the guy who's, I'm sorry, your friends that came out and, the guy that I suggested that he wasted our time talking
Yeah.
for 40 minutes.
That
what
was
did
in
he,
July.
what
I
did
know
he
you-
say?
That was in
Can you
July.
just give a
We,
little?
we asked the guy if he'd look at the building over here and tell us if it's suitable for a library. This is a year and a half ago.
July.
Yeah, I
This
heard
is-
the story.
So you say when people weren't doing things, people were doing things. And the guy come down here and said, it's not suitable for a library, and then he proceeded to spend close to an hour just telling us what a beautiful library he could build for us.
This is the guy you want to come back?
No,
Who is it that you want to come back?
no, but the architect that he brought in the next time, when we had a special meeting over at the Main Street School, he brought this guy in to be his mouthpiece because he figured I was gonna strangle him if he opened his mouth again.
So what did the architect said that you liked?
He wanted to do what we wanted.
So does Paul Rivers.
I mean, well,
I like Paul Mays because, like, the
I think
meeting-
you guys should take a look at this guy. See
Coming
what
from
he-
Rochester, we have to pay for him?
Should, in the sense that we need to.
I don't know if it
Well, we're
was
jumping the
right.
gun again. I think we're putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
Let's get the appraisal, let's see what the appraisal tells us. Then we'll see what the lawyer says when he talks to, Ray's lawyer. Let's get our options about an option to buy or a right of refusal. And then from there, then we need to sit down with Paul if that's our choice and, okay, what is it gonna cost us? Need you do an engineering review and tell me what to build that square foot over there is gonna cost.
And should we not get a price from him, from Ray in the first place? Like, what is it gonna cost us
See,
to?
I don't know
Maybe
how
before we
he can
even
guarantee.
spend a dime.
What's Ray's price? You wanna know what
Yeah.
Ray wants?
What's the asking price?
I don't know
Yeah.
how Ray can tell us what it's going to be
Yeah,
to,
That's
no,
usually
on the shell, the way it is right
serious
now.
conversation.
We're not asking him a moving price, what do you want for the building
Just for the
right now?
building.
I think it's
Because
3 million.
anything,
I
any
think
kind
it
of
was
a
4.5.
deal that we
I
have.
thought it was 4 and
I
a half.
thought it was three,
No,
wait,
he
3
never
and a half?
gave a price. He
of
said,
building.
I have 4.5
$6.5
million tied up in this building.
That's the number I go
That's
back to.
What he said. I have 4.5 million in this building, including at that point the interest that he was paying on.
so it's like
On the
buying a
mortgage.
house. We should go to Ray and say, Ray, how much do you want,
Right,
how much
it
do
was
you want for the
actually listed,
building?
wasn't it?
What's
Isn't there-
the
isn't
asking
If he
there-
price?
says
and then you
7
bring
million
it.
and I'm firm, you know,
Then
we
we're
might as well
done.
forget about the
No,
bill.
No, he's already spoken in terms of the building being finished
At
around 5.5 or
6.5.
6, so.
6.5.
That's
But
what
that's
I
what
remember.
Six and a
scared me
half.
too,
I remember
3 and 3.5.
to purchase, 3.5 to do the entire thing.
which I'm not sure if
From-
that's
I think
possible, and
it's-
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
how
where
he
the
can come up with
tree
that
came
number
from.
without knowing. You're talking sprinklers, you're talking
3 million to
bathrooms
build
now, you're
out.
talking getting
Yeah.
it finished. I don't know how he can even know those numbers,
It
to be honest
Neither
with
do
you.
I. You're right.
And that makes me nervous, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
how he
wanna
can
see a
say,
line
it's
item
yours
by
for
line
3,
item.
for 3.5, I'll move you in.
Because
Okay,
that
now we're talking
included tables
bathrooms, we're
and
talking.
computers and
It's
all that?
everything. It's everything,
But-
but I
That's like me buying a house and saying, okay, I'm gonna buy Laura Ashley
That's a lot of
furniture, fill my
money.
house for $1 million and be able to do it, and then at the end of the day going, I messed up. Now, he's not gonna want to take a loss when we sign a contract for 6.5, and we certainly don't want empty walls. I mean, there's a lot to consider about getting that building finished, that's why I don't have a warm fuzzy.
Okay. The appraisal is a good first step, right?
Yes, it's a must.
That's where
All right,
we
and
build
now,
And
why
then-
don't you contact Ray and say, what is the asking price for the building as it stands? And just email us so we know what that
And
number
it's probably
is.
on the web if we looked up commercial realty and see what it's listed.
not for sale, it's for lease on the
No,
web.
only lease.
Oh, that's what the real estate sign was for lease? Okay.
To sell us this building tomorrow, Ray, what do you want for the building? And then, I don't know those soft costs, I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah.
I'd like to,
Right.
if, I don't know who's the contact person between us and Paul Mays? Is it Matt, or, just to ask, you know, a time frame for his proposals?
Well, he said he's gonna put something together, and I'm sure they have, it's just now a matter of him saying, okay, are you interested in
I
going
know,
with
but
this,
it's
and
not,
how
he's
much
not
is it
gonna
gonna
wait
be?
till February to give us
No,
something.
no,
It
no,
was
he said he was gonna put something
weeks.
So he
together
has a
after we
sense
met
of
him.
our urgency.
Okay, got it,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha, okay.
I have a feeling it's probably already done, if not, he just is waiting for us to say, you know, and then do it.
For a proposal.
For Salesian.
He's
And
got all the
what training.
information,
So you-
and he said he was gonna work on it, I'm sure if they did it, it's done, it's just in an archive somewhere now, it's just waiting for
The-
the.
the what is done?
He probably has a proposal bulleted or drafted at his office now, based on what we said, for him to look at this and to look at that. But he's not gonna go or pursue it until we sign a check or say, how much is it going to
A
be?
proposal to outline the work he needs to do for pay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm confused.
Well,
Why?
he needs
Is
to
he-
do, he needs to do research in terms of these meetings with community and talking to, and Matt's report on what do we want in the library. So he can't give us a price on what's gonna cost to build it, but we need a proposal for him to start that project.
Is that, are we talking exclusively the Quattrini building, or are we also talking about
No,
the?
he said he
the
would do
Salesian?
two. He would look at he would give us a proposal on the Quattrini with the engineering review,
Mhm.
getting that, and then taking that building and putting on Salesian.
And not necessarily two-floor building, but some type of stencil.
12,000 square foot.
12,000 square foot.
With a
Green,
price,
yes.
green building.
Based on, this is
Well,
what
he
it
said
costs to build
geothermal, I mean, it's gonna
building.
cost you up front, but in 8
Mhm.
years it'll pay for itself. And there's a slew of refunds from federal, from state, from county
Mhm.
on those sorts of things.
Mhm.
So
I
that'll
don't know
be,
if they apply to public building.
And we don't necessarily have to build a twelve
so.
thousand square building to begin with, it could be phased.
Right, but just for a base of, reference for
Reference.
him, I said, this size over there, what would it cost us?
Fair enough.
And then it's phase one this year, in 10 years it's phase two, and then Goshen can do whatever they want. So,
Fair
get the
enough.
appraisal, then we can go from there, and Matt will say, Ray, what do you want for the building? If he's willing to even write something down and fax it over and sign it, great, so now we have something in writing, this is what I want for the building. Cause this verbal stuff isn't, it's just not gonna fly.
No, things in writing that we can.
so Matt's gonna contact Paul's office and say, can we have a proposal by December 12th?
Well, we need to know what it's gonna cost. Yeah,
Well,
I'm
right.
sure he'll have a proposal, and then if we tell him what would it cost us, and then we need to discuss that. But yeah, and then, so paramount is the appraisal to have done by next meeting, if not before. Our lawyer's talking to Ray's lawyer, so again, he knows we're serious, we're not just jerking him around if we're getting our lawyers talking, I mean, people are concerned about that, but I know he knows we're interested. We just don't bring an architect over there and start spending money if you're not interested in the building. Yeah, so the appraisal, the two lawyers, if we can in writing, Ray, what do you want for the building?
Could you also talk with your people and talk with yourself on vision for a library, to get their input,
Sure.
those in the trenches.
They work, I mean, they work,
It's just,
right.
it's a starting point for further discussion,
Mhm.
so.
Sure.
And I got the impression, I don't know about you guys, from Paul, he said it's a great building, it's a nice building,
So
but
it's well built.
take into account storage, when you have to store these tables somewhere, now you're taking a lot of space out of a room, when you have to store the chairs, all these things. So it was kind of like, just be, mindful.
That you start eating into
It's, by the time you
space.
put the walls up there, complete, now you've lost a couple of feet with the walls.
Mhm.
Now you have to put in storage, each table and chair takes up a spatial relation per person. So it looks good as a shell, but once the walls go up and you add all this furniture, we may be sardines again.
Cause there is no basement for storage, or an attic for storage.
Are we okay getting the building with the tenant?
His comment on the tenant, his only comment, or the strongest comment, is that it's a shame to have to put in offices now to accommodate our staff, and then